This edition of Up Close with Colin Thompson is brought to you by Windows Group of Companies. Why go anywhere else?
And welcome back for those just joining. Today we have the pleasure of profiling Somerset's oldest surviving cup match player, 88 not out.
Close to 89.
Close to 89. There you go. There you have it. So Mr. Woods, before we went into the break, we were talking about the big moment when you got selected for cup match, and I was mentioning about the trials. Was it were you nervous as a youngster, 17, one of the younger players in the bunch? What was that experience like for a teenager?
The experience was different. To me, I was selected, and I had watched cup match for many years at the Naval's ground, which is now Warren Somerset's ground, named after him. But I was elated, and all I could think about it, what comes next. So the preparation started to begin then. And so they took me aside. I got congratulated by my mates, my friends, close friends, and members of the club and the management committee. To me, it was like the best thing in the world. And it gave me a sense of responsibility, because now I'm playing. I'm been selected to play for Somerset, and there had been many great players, far greater than myself, that had played for Somerset. How was I, as a youngster, going to measure up to them? Or could I emulate some of the things that they had done? So the coach was Elmer Champon. He took me aside, and that was a Thursday night. He said, "I want to see you at the field tomorrow after work." I said, "Okay." I came up to the club, and he says, "Here, we're gonna make a plan for you, for the team." Woodgate Simmons was the captain, and they discussed the St. George's team, and he says that you haven't played against most of these people, so here's what we're going to do. And they gave me a plan A, but they never gave me a plan B. So all I knew was what I had read and what they were telling me I had to do. They didn't ask me to do it. They said, "This is what you have to do if you want to be successful." So I said, okay. So it was inbred in me. In 10 days, you be on the field. At that time.
So what was the plan? The plan A, the early plan.
Well, like Mr. Champon wrote in his book, the plan was to bull what they call outswingers. And the plan was to attack Buster Smith so he couldn't make a huge score. Much was not mentioned about the other players, but Mr. Hunt made me focus on Buster Smith. And then he started to tell me about a fellow named Tubby Pascoe, who was the opening bat, one of the opening bats for St. George's, and Andy Smith. And he was saying, here are the faults So we planned how to maybe get them out very quickly. The plan worked because we didn't have a plan B.
So where was the match? Where was that match to that year, 53?
53 was played in Somerset.
In Somerset. So did that give you a confidence boost playing, in your home turf?
Not really for the first time. There was a fellow by the name of Hilly Brangman, and cup matches those days, you had 8,000 to 10,000 people attending cup match. His voice came from the southern end, and I'd marked off my run. The field was set, and all I heard was, "Go down, Buck." And he must have waited until I got 3 feet from the wicket, because I almost didn't let the ball go. Anyway, I let the ball go, and Tubby Pascoe missed it. So the second ball, I felt a little bit more comfortable because I had released the first ball. And the second ball, never forget it, Tubby Pascoe played forward, and he edged the ball, and Sinclair Bunker Smith was the third man on the boundary. So the second ball I bowled at cup match, I got a wicket. And from there, it was a progression. I got Andy Smith out, I got Brody Smith out, I got Buster Smith out. Now, being a youngster, they had told me, do not try to bowl short to Buster Smith. And at that time, right there and then, I felt a little bit arrogant because I got a couple of 3 wickets. I said, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And what happened was, I bowled him a bouncer, he hit the ball and ran for a 4. And I thought that was a miss hit. So I bowled him another bouncer, and he hit me a 6 to the eastern side. And my captain, Woodgate Simmons, came down to me and reminded me that we have a plan and we're going to stick to it. So about 2 hours later, I got Buster Smith out. The team was on a roll because I had the honor of being able to get the first 4 wickets in cup match, that cup match. And so that's how it progressed, that very first cup match.
So you ended up with 4 wickets on your debut.
Yes.
A spectacular debut.
Unfortunately, I had bowled that first day 18 straight overs. 18, not 8, 18. And the second that came out, Dixie Parentship, who was the masseuse, had rubbed me down, and I felt kind of okay. But instead of just taking it easy for an over 2, I bowled 2 or 3 balls, and I felt that I was ready to start bowling as fast as I could. And I pulled a muscle, so that left me almost out of the game. I went in and he did some work on me, but I couldn't bowl no more. So that happened in my very first cup match. And I think we drew that match. From that match, a lot of things happened. A lot of things happened to me. In November of that year, I turned 18, and Mr. Percival Reddery, who was the secretary of the club, came to me and said, how would you like to be a professional cricketer? And I said, I would relish the opportunity to be able to do that. He said, but you're not going to Scotland. You're going to England. About a month later, he brought me over this contract, and we read it, himself and myself, Dr. Cairn. We read it and it says, here's what you get paid. This is what you're going to do. You're going to join Nigel Chopper Hazel. You're going to fly from Bermuda on Pan Am. You're going to leave New York on Queen Elizabeth II. You're going to be met by the club officials once you sign your name to this contract. So I went home, I spoke to my mother, and she said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I love cricket. If I could play professionally, I'll go. But, I want your opinion. And she said to me, well, I cannot tell you to go or stay. I'd like for you to be around here. But she said to me, you're only going to have this one opportunity. So what are you going to do? And I said right away, I'm going to take it. So I took it. But before that, there's a gap in between me signing the contract and what made Mr. Reddery say, okay, you could do something a little different. The MCC Cricket Club, which was now the ICC, was going to the West Indies to play a series of cricket. And they were passing through Bermuda. So Bermuda Cricket Association and the Somerset League got together with the Border Control. I must say at that time, the Border Control was made up of Somerset and St. George's. So they invited them with sponsorship to stay and play a series of matches in Bermuda. Well, the first match they played was against the Somerset League. And then they had this reception at Government House. Sir Leonard Houghton was the captain of the England team at that time. And he made remarks that I didn't particularly like. He said, they are no more than a village team. And a village team in England is not that good. So Champ Hunt got us together once the team was selected and said, look, he's classifying Bermuda, which is a country, to a village team. You have to show them that you are far better than any village team that got in England. So that was a thought that stuck with myself. And so we played. They played the Somerset League, and the next team they played was the Pick of Bermuda. And as a result of that, we did a reasonably good job, because what they had done, Bermuda had brought Chopper Hazel back to Bermuda, because he normally came back to visit his father and mother. And he played with us. He practiced with us. In fact, he made the highest score for a Bermudian at that time. And what
was the score?
Pardon?
What was his score?
His score was 43. So what happened? They batted first. So they're going along, and then Carol Bummy Salmons and myself were bowling. And in that match, I got like 5 wickets. Bummy got 4, And then we went back the next day because it was a 2-day match, and they only had to get like 40 or 50 runs to beat us. And I bowled out a fellow by the name of Dennis Compton, who played for Middlesex. But in the first innings, I bowled out Sir Leonard Houghton then, and he was the record holder for the most runs scored in the test match, which was 364. I bowled him out. Ironically, I might say that the first ball that he received in Bermuda was bowled by a white guy named Peter Mulder, and he got him out the first ball for duck. And Peter played in the pick of Bermuda, but he wasn't successful. When I bowled him out, he had 40 runs, 40 odd runs on the board. He had Tom Graveney. He in the England team. They had Peter May. They had Fred Truman. They had Brian Statham, Alan Morse, Tony Locke, Johnny Wardle. They had a formidable team. And so we were playing against the best of the best. And we could walk away with our heads held very high, because Sir Leonard Houghton said that it was one of the greatest surprises that he had had. And he didn't expect it from a little small island like Bermuda. So back to Mr. Reddery.
And where was that match, to the MCC match?
That match was played in Somerset.
In Somerset.
Yeah, all the matches were played in Somerset.
And of course, you were on the concrete
Yes.
and the matting.
I had concrete and the matting. I hadn't yet played on turf.
So did the ball do a lot on the matting?
It was, they did a lot, but you had to work hard, because there was a truism about concrete and the matting. The ball, it wasn't like variable turn or anything like that. Very, very true. So as the cricketing term, if you wanted success, you had to bend your back. But it did move off the seam in the first 10 or 12 overs. But because it was on concrete, got kind of roughed up. And see, we didn't know all about reverse swing at that time. You know, because on both sides, it was rough. No smooth side and rough side. It was difficult. And if a batsman got stuck in, he got stuck in. For instance, you know, at that time, there only a couple of centuries really made the cup match was Bosun Swankson for St. George's, Champ Hunt for Somerset. By the way, I'm going to say this: the first four centuries that were made in cup match, one was in St. George's, that was Bosun Swankson, then Champ Hunt, then Lloyd Bosun Simmons, and then Timmy Edwards. So Somerset had the opportunity. Our batsmen had made like 3 out of the 4 centuries, which was unheard of at that time.
Interesting. We're just going to pause for a quick moment. Folks, don't go nowhere. We'll be right back with much, much more from Mr. Eugene Buckwoods.
This edition of Up Close with Colin Thompson is brought to you by Lindo's Group of Companies. Why go anywhere else?